Cold open, the season snaps the realm back into motion, the wars aren't over. Spoiler warning, this covers episodes 1 and 2. Think of season 3 as a chessboard. Who has armies, who claims the throne, who wields influence? In the north the Starks remain a fractured power. Robb leads an army, Catelyn presses alliances, Sansa and Bran stand for surviving claims. At King's Landing the Lannisters hold political authority and crown resources in Tywin, Cersei, Jaime, and Tyrion. Across the Narrows see Daenerys rebuild strength in Essos, gathering followers and influence rather than territory. The Night's Watch and Jon Snow hold the Wall, guarding against a beyond-the-wall threat. Meanwhile the Greyjoys and the Boltons are reshaping northern control through local power plays. These are the pieces and their material value: men, claim, leverage. Reading later betrayals and victories as shifts in that material makes them strategic, not random. Next we'll move to the concrete choices that begin to redraw the board. Early in Season 3, a few deliberate choices turn a regional war into a hunt. In the Riverlands, Robb Stark keeps his campaign alive, but a marriage decision and the breaking of an arranged vow with House Frey function less like romance and more like a treaty breach. That single political choice erodes a crucial alliance, hands opponents leverage, and reshapes who can be trusted on the battlefield. Far to the east in Slaver's Bay, Daenerys Targaryen treats human lives and manpower as the currency of policy. She moves from charismatic exile toward a commander who converts followers into a disciplined force, seizing, training and organizing troops while freeing and integrating slaves into her ranks. Read as policy choices, marriages, oaths, and the buying or freeing of soldiers are economic acts that redistribute power. The immediate effect is practical: new troops, new enemies, and new demands on logistics and loyalty. The strategic effect is political: promises broken create grievance lines, and the building of a professional army reframes Daenerys from claimant to contender. Those choices generate secrets, divided loyalties, and pressure. The next chapter will follow the investigations, spies, and shifting alliances that grow from them. Pressure tightens in this chapter as secrets and loyalties strain from within. Jon Snow's covert placement among the wildlings moves beyond tactics. Living with them draws him into intimate ties and moral choices that complicate his sworn duty to the Night's Watch. That undercover life tests whether allegiance is a paper oath or something earned by proximity and feeling, and those private compromises quietly reconfigure what he can and will do later. Back in the South, Jaime Lannister endures a brutal, career-ending injury that removes his sword hand and forces the first stages of a personal reinvention. Stripped of his weapon and stature, Jaime becomes a smaller political asset and a more complex human actor. His loss reframes what loyalty and honor mean for him and for those who bargain over Lannister influence in King's Landing. The season translates high-stakes politics into intimate pressure tests. Spycraft, secret attachments, and bodily loss make abstract power tangible. These ruptures in loyalty are the seeds of public betrayals yet to come. While these theaters constrict, the season also runs a parallel arc, Daenerys' campaign in Slaver's Bay, which needs its own detailed account. Daenerys' arc in Slaver's Bay is state-building as much as conquest. In Season 3 she shifts from exile to power by acquiring disciplined forces and converting military victories into political authority. Through bold bargaining and a staged seizure of the Unsullied, she turns purchased warriors into a loyal army and then liberates them, a decision that creates both manpower and moral legitimacy. Riding this momentum, she presses against the slave cities, expanding territory and establishing local governance that centers freed people. Crucially, freed populations begin to identify her as a protector and a mother figure by the season's end, publicly endorsing her rule. That popular allegiance functions as social capital, a base that supplies recruits, labor, and political legitimacy other Westerosi claimants lack. Her choices, freeing slaves, deploying disciplined troops, and accepting responsibility for civilians, change the balance of power in Essos and set up a different kind of claim on rule. Meanwhile, back in Westeros in the north, a parallel story of identity, cruelty, and betrayal is unfolding. Those events will soon intersect with the political foundation she builds here. In the north, cruelty becomes a political engine. Theon Greyjoy's arc in Season 3 moves from arrogance to annihilation, captured, repeatedly abused, and stripped of the identity and choices that once defined him. His reduction to a broken body and name removes a wildcard from the great houses, but it also signals something deeper. when a lord's agency is extinguished, local power networks recalibrate around survival rather than oath. At the same time, Robb Stark's war fractures. Supply strains, battlefield setbacks, and uneasy loyalties force Northern and Riverland leaders into pragmatic choices that conceal private deals and short-term bargains. Roose Bolton and other lords begin to look less like reliable liegemen and more like actors hedging bets. Those quiet repositionings change not only where troops march but who will answer when a crisis arrives. Read together, Theon's personal collapse and the Stark coalition's unraveling are cause and symptom. Personal brutality undermines authority, and political uncertainty invites betrayal. These shifts clear space for a cold escalation, a planned massacre that will redraw the map of power in the north and beyond. Violence that had been gestating across the realm detonates in a single, organized act, a betrayal that makes private bargains public and redraws the map of the North and the Riverlands. In the season's pivotal sequence, several great houses coordinate to slaughter Northern commanders and guests, eliminating the leadership that had opposed Lannister ascendancy. The choice to turn a marriage and a feast into an execution reveals how oaths, hostages, and dynastic promises are treated as instruments of war. Marriages seal lethal pacts, pledges are broken when advantage demands, captives are returned only to die. The immediate consequence is catastrophic. The Stark military chain collapses, Northern authority fractures, and new actors claim the vacuum. Politically, the treachery empowers houses aligned with the crown, realigns loyalties in the Riverlands, and hands control of the North to those who engineered the blow. For characters, it punishes stubborn honor with brutal practicality, rewarding pragmatists who bargain in blood rather than words. This betrayal is the season's hinge, a public confirmation that covert agreements now determine state borders and lordship. What follows is a scramble. Survivors reframe ambitions, rivals consolidate, and the war's moral rubric is forever altered. Season 3 closes with a rapid and brutal rearrangement of power that reshapes every front of the war for Westeros. The Red Wedding destroys the Stark Field Command, Robb Stark's campaign collapses, his army disbands, and the North's ability to project military force is effectively broken. That catastrophe is not accidental, a calculated betrayal by the Freys, enabled by Roose Bolton and tacit Lannister coordination, hands territory and authority in the Riverlands and North to new masters. In King's Landing, Tywin and his allies consolidate centralized control. Lannister political authority deepens even as court rivalries simmer. Across the Narrow Sea, Daenerys builds a different kind of power. By freeing the unsullied and liberating cities, she gains mass popular legitimacy and a growing, loyal following, though she lacks the established institutions of rulership. At the Wall and beyond, the status quo remains tense but peripheral to the main shift. The Starks' collapse creates a yawning vacuum that others rush to fill. The immediate ledger is clear: Lannisters and their regional partners gain territorial and governmental authority, Freys and Boltons gain local control through treachery, Daenerys gains moral and popular sovereignty among the liberated. The season's end separates legal and coercive power from popular legitimacy, and it sets up the next cycle of contests, wars not just for land, but for who people will obey. Season 3 ends as a deliberate reshuffle of power and purpose. Spoiler warning: this narration reveals major deaths and the season's turning points. The immediate result is brutal: the Starks are shattered, Robb's campaign collapses, and key Stark figures are killed, leaving their claim to rule in ruins. That vacuum lets the Lannister-aligned conspirators and their allies consolidate territory after the massacre. Across the Narrow Sea, Daenerys transforms from exile to liberator. By seizing her unsullied and freeing slaves in cities like Astapor, she achieves an army and popular backing that spell a new route to authority based on emancipation rather than inherited claim. These outcomes shift narrative sympathy toward her social legitimacy while making several characters defined by irreversible loss, grief, and oaths broken now demand retribution. Practically, the season hands new rulers territories they must govern and opponents hard choices shaped by what they gained or lost. The next season pivots on revenge, governance, and whether force or legitimacy will win the game.